All right. So, everybody on the other end, we're all live. And Ryan, Casey, Scott Newless, Tenson, Morgan, Carlos, thank you all for your fantastic presentations. Everybody can, if you start talking, everybody can hear you and they can see you. And we have some questions we're going to certainly get to. And Scott Newless, I'm going to rely on you to help me out with the questions a little bit. But one of the things that I wanted to start off with is first, thank you very much for the excellent presentations. And of course, at Esri, we know that that's a big thing. You guys have busy jobs, things going on all day. So we thank you for sharing your story and putting the time in preparing that. Any comments from any of you before we get into our Q&A? This is my warm up for you. There you go, Tenson. All right, I knew I could count on you, Tenson. Oh, you might be muted there, Tenson. That's a good. You're helping us all out to make sure we're not muted when we talk. Oh, nope, you're still muted. Morgan, are you there? Is everybody, can you talk, say something?
I can hear you. Can you
hear me? Good, Casey, thank you.
Good deal. I'd like to say y'all guys did a great job putting all these presentations together for us. It's really great to hear what these, these other guys had been working on. So I think we even got takeaways from this, looking at some of the new velocity type technologies and stuff that y'all guys have that we're going to be looking into shortly. So yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Thank you, Casey. Ryan, you there? Is your mic working?
I'm here.
All right, Ryan. Well, Ryan, since you went first right out of the gate with your presentation on visualization, one of the things that it's been a reoccurring question, I'm scrolling through all the questions as Scott posts them in here, is how on earth did you figure out how to do that? in your diagram, you had the old pin diagram. Was this did you just dream this up and put this together? How did
I had been thinking for a long time about ways to try to visualize production over time. And, I explored other paths, like trying to do animations in a web map. And I was never quite, satisfied with being able to get the full picture of, a time span. And that's when, it started getting me to thinking about things that I've seen in the past. And I mentioned the chart recorders. And so that, ages ago, 1990s, I worked for a company that was a construction company building natural gas pipelines. And so I knew these chart recorders were around. I had seen the results of them. They were always interesting to me. It helped to be able to see something over time. And so I started thinking about ways that I might be able to plot out that production in a similar fashion.
Yep. Some of the questions, Ryan, and I'll just scroll through a couple, and Scott, if you see some, jump in, but I'll go with the bottom first, Ryan. But someone asked, was well spacing something that you considered to add to your visual, since this could influence performance of that well?
Well spacing, I did consider it in the process when I was sizing the charts, but no, I didn't think of it as something to be added to the visualization. There's some variabilities. In some areas that might work well, where the wells are running parallel to one another. In other places, not so much. They might be approaching each other at different angles. So it becomes challenging to specify a standard spacing.
Yeah. One of the questions also, Ryan, for you, and then we'll move on to some of the other folks here, but they ask, what FME tools did you use to process the data into the chart format?
Yes, that was probably one of the most complex workflows that I've put together, and there's a lot of transformers in there. But probably the one that they're most interested in hearing about, which I think of as the make or break sort of transformer that I had available, was the offsetter in polar coordinate mode. Without that transformer, I don't know how I would have accomplished this without probably having to get into Python to do some of the work. But this was done no code.
I was surprised, Ryan. I was actually expecting someone to ask, "Hey, Ryan, can you share your workflows and models so that we can use them?" I haven't seen that yet, but I was expecting that. Scott, anything or anybody else have any questions or thoughts about the visuals that Ryan had in there?
Yeah, I've got something. Ryan, do you have any insight as to how some of these kind of custom visualizations that you were able to come up with helped kind of drive adoption across the organization? Did you find more people kind of gravitating towards these web maps and coming to you and saying, "Hey, what else? What other kinds of visualizations can you add?"
Yeah, I would say that when you can come up with a good focused solution to a problem and it's saving somebody else some time, there's always other ways for people to get at data. There's other platforms, there's other sources. But when you can put it all together in one place in a very focused way and save someone time, it does drive a lot of traffic to the website.
Awesome.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, Mr. Morgan, Tenzin, you guys are on deck. There's a few questions here for you. Morgan, you're called out with this first one, and someone is asking what geo event connector you use to pull from Signet SCADA. Any insight there? Uh-oh, you might be muted, Morgan. Nope. Tenson, you're there, right? No, we can't hear either of you. Uh-oh. Well, I'll come back to you. There must be something going on from Canada here. All right. So we'll get you guys to figure that out. So Carlos, Casey, that then comes back to you. And I'm gonna be selfish here. And Casey, I was gonna ask you a question about the ROI. It's just the numbers that you were able to provide and the percentages of that increase from the kind of the before and after. How did you put all that stuff together? And I'm assuming you did some kind of analysis before and could directly compare. Anything you can elaborate on?
Yeah, so we knew right off the bat, right, this project was going to be a little different than traditional projects when it comes to operations. We wasn't going to be able to look just at, did our production go up and things like that. Just easy, real quantitative numbers to go by, right? This is qualitative data. We're basically trying to see how long people are staying, on location, their quality of life, how things like that really have changed. But luckily, like the drive time was an easy one, right? Because we did have historical data from our telematic devices. So we was able to capture that for years prior while we've been using those devices and basically build a baseline. So we would know exactly how much time our guys was generally spending on location. This was before we actually had geofences and stuff. So there was a lot of manual work to go in to build this baseline. A lot of people going and looking at a lot of maps, looking at a lot of data and calculating that type of information. But now moving forward, now that we actually captured those enter and exit event times, like Carlos was talking about in the demonstration, now we can compare those apples to apples. We can see the gains on that. So by not doing this every day, which, like you said, was our mantra for the longest time, getting away from that and saying, hey, you know what? We don't have to visit these wells every day, but we can visit them on this set amount of time. And by doing that, we don't have to go to so many things a day. That really let us capitalize on how much time we were able to spend on location. And by doing that, we could actually cover more stuff, right? Because we don't have to go to certain wells every day. We might go to them every week or every 3 days or something. So that allowed our responsibility pool per pumper to really skyrocket. So that really helped us during COVID when we had our area operation managers calling saying, hey, I've got 5 guys out of this area that, they can't work for 14 days. Now we have 3 left. Thank goodness for VDP. We was able to say, okay, it's all right. We can, running our conformance models, it looks like we could still be able to handle these wells at these set cadences and still match our business value and make sure that we're not letting anything fall through the cracks and we're not doing, anything that's outside of the our norms of operation. We wouldn't, we're not going to break any rules, and we're not going to, cause any HSE events, anything like that. We're watching that, really closely.
Yeah, that's interesting. Carlos and Casey, like that you guys were doing all this kind of right in the middle of the pandemic, right? Everyone's kind of dispersed, working from home, kind of trying to figure things out. I mean, what challenges did you have as a rollout to try to do this? I mean, was the pilot going on still at this point? And how did you, I mean, I'm guessing this was a disruptive technology for the folks that you were introducing it to. Any challenges that popped up with that?
Sure. So I mean, like I said, this was a major culture shift for Apache, right? I mean, these guys, they was hired and told the day one. I mean, even when I started at Apache as a pumper, I mean, the first thing I was told from my foreman was we go to every well every day. This is a deep rooted culture, right? The way we've always done it. I mean, that drives culture. That's what you always hear. So we had to spend a lot of time. We spent a lot of time building this tool with our guys from the ground up. So every concept, every part of our business rules, and every way that we was wanting to programmatically handle this, we made sure that the field was constantly involved and constantly took their feedback. So we took these original pilot areas that we was working with. We took the lessons learned from that, and we actually, in the response for this, COVID and everything else, we kind of chopped down our original pilot to be able to scale quickly. We took out some more complicated components, and we made this to where we can move really fast. But we visited every single field area. At the time, it was 29 foreman areas. We're talking hundreds of pumpers. We spoke with them each one-on-one and in a group setting and gathered their feedback and made sure they really felt like they was, part of this development. This was really an Apache-driven and Apache-developed project, all the way from the frontline workers to our very capable IT teams that we have.
Fantastic. Carlos, there's a question here for you that I think maybe picks up where Casey just left off, and it says, well, once you decided to make the solution, quote unquote production ready, how long did it take you to fully roll it out to the business?
It took months. I want to say, Casey, correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say it took about 6 months to take it into production, because we were taking area by area, and like Casey said, it was a process, right? So Casey will travel to different field operations. He will sit down with the people in groups and all that to talk about the project. And then at the same time, I was working with all the GIS analysts to get the data ready, basically, all the road network, all the geofences. So everything was happening at the same time. So wow. So when Casey was ready to roll out, most of the times, I want to say, we actually had the data ready so we can keep moving and implementing it.
How many folks, Carlos, from your side were working on this from an IT GIS side? How many people did you have doing this project?
I think I want to say, I mean, some of them are hopefully attending the conference. I want to say we were total about 5 analysts, GIS analysts, between supervisors and analysts, about 5 or 6 people.
Fantastic. And I know Scott Nulis's dogs bark after a year. Scott, is that yours? Was that your dog, Scott?
Yeah, I was trying to mute my mic.
All right. Well, your dog wanted to be broadcast live around the world, and speaking from live and around the world, Morgan, can we hear you now from Canada?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Oh, look at that. We fixed Canada. Morgan.
Canada.
All right. Well, we'll come back around for some questions. Ryan, don't go anywhere, because there's still some questions for you. We're trying to disperse them out so everybody gets a good dose of talking time. But Morgan, there's a couple questions, and the one that I was trying to ask you before was all about the GeoEvent connector that you were using for the SIGNET and SCADA information. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's actually the part of the project that was more Tenzin. So Tenzin, it was kind of Tenzin's creation, and he was kind of working with our team in Madrid, the IT GIS team there. So they were kind of organizing all that. It took a while, like a year or so. I can't speak to the exact connectors, but I know he did a lot of work. Like, I was sitting next. I was in the next office over from him, and he had, like, I want to say, like 50 different meetings, just trying to orchestrate everyone and bringing up his wall of awesomeness, and just having people parading into his office pretty much. So I can definitely speak to how much fun, I guess, he had kind of orchestrating the whole thing. But yeah, my role was more, once it was kind of connected and mashing up all their data sources into the portal, kind of support, a bit of a support model at the end too, triaging different issues from the end users, from the IOC, and just making sure the system runs smoothly now if there's any kind of glitches. So, oh, Tenzin's back here. Maybe he can.
I know. Speaking of Tenzin, I bet you anything we fixed him too, right, Tenzin? You there?
I think, yeah. Can you guys hear me all right?
Oh,
Yeah.
we got you crystal clear, Tenzin.
Perfect.
Morgan was just covering for you while we got you resolved on the back end there. And we were going back to that question about the Signet connectors and kind of how you brought all that together. And Morgan was telling us that you had maybe that's where the wall of awesomeness came from. I don't know, but he said all of your ideas were scattered amongst your wall as you tried to figure that out.
Yeah. So as I mentioned to you guys earlier, there was a whole shift in terms of moving our GIS platform from Canada over to Madrid. That in itself created its own little situation where we didn't really understand exactly what was going to be where and how things were going to connect, and if we could even connect from one country to another country and push this data back and forth. And at the same time, our instrumentation teams are going through some changes as well and selecting new applications and software to use for their purposes, their own internal purposes. So what we did as a GIS team was try to understand what the landscape looked like infrastructure-wise as well as software, and then said, okay, what is the most cost-effective way to utilize what we already have to then connect our systems to whatever GIS system, wherever that GIS system is going to be. So that was the issue, and we had to involve our IT security teams, our risk teams, we had to look at our information management governance, and make sure we can access this data back and forth. We had a lot of different teams kind of advising us one way or another, and we kind of ended up sticking with a software called OSI Pi. It was selected because it, at the time, was one of the tools that we had available currently that could support the real-time data push to Geo event. So yeah, in between Signet and GIS was our OSI Pi system.
Nice. Thank you for sharing, Tenzin. Definitely sounds like a lot of moving pieces and parts there. But we've had a couple questions around the applications that you used. Morgan, you demonstrated, web app builder, so you had some configurable apps. You showed some dashboards, and you talked about workforce as well. And one of the questions here addressed to both of you is: are you using workforce in conjunction with a work order management system on the back end?
Yeah, I can speak to that quickly, and then maybe Tenzin can add. But again, yeah, we are just in the process now of switching work order management systems into SAP. So that has been requested by the IOC operators. It'll be a big value add once we can get there. But yeah, again, there's a lot of moving parts right now in our organization, and so we're kind of holding tight on that for now. But yeah, it's definitely been requested.
Yeah, same thing as Morgan said. It's part of our. It was part of the scope that we developed. We had a 3-phase scope. We finished with our scope 1 phase, phase 1 of our scope, and that was just to provide a minimal viable product to our clients. Phase 2 and phase 3 are all the extra things that they wanted to do, and part of phase 2, I believe, was to try to connect it to our maintenance systems because they do ticketing through those systems. But we also found other ad hoc ways that people were trying to maintain maintenance schedules and logs, right? Because there's sometimes that system wasn't adequate enough for their purposes. So we just said, okay, well, before we try to delve into that and start to detangle that, let's just provide them what we can already provide them out of the box, and then work on that in the future when those systems are up and running and in place.
Thanks, Tenzin.
Hey, Adam, sorry, I cut you off.
Go for it.
So you mentioned Web App Builder, and Morgan, you showed a couple of different applications. So you showed a really cool widget in there, the incident analysis widget, where you could kind of drop a point, set a buffer, and get some different things about weather and assets impacted. You want to talk a little bit about kind of what it took to set that up, kind of what was included out of the box, and kind of how your guys in Operations Center use that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd like to make myself seem super smart here, but I mean, Esri's done such a good job of these apps. I was actually, I remember I was kind of just playing around with some of the different widgets, and I was quite amazed when I found it. I was like, oh, this is so easy. You just, it's just like configuring, and then again, it's kind of Tenzin's, goes back to Tenzin's thing where you have to kind of walk the halls and see who's interested in this, because some people really don't care depending on the department, but then our emergency response team, we were able to bring that up in live events and kind of drills, and they're really impressed with just seeing like the live weather pop up and just what residents are going to be affected in that specific buffer. So yeah, it's actually quite easy to set up, and the whole Esri web app builder and all that's really making us look really good. So thanks a lot, Adam.
Well, that's one of the things I build, Morgan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll take all the credit there. Unlike you, good job. Oh, Scott's going to give me a hard time on that. Carlos, there is a question. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Adam. I was just going to add, one of the best things that I find about the Esri product suite was that the capabilities, the applications allow for cross-functional capabilities. So like being able to build a form, then that form being able to be accessed through a collector or field maps, I guess is the new one, and then being able to show that back on in the office on our screens in real time. The status of that inspection. Not having to think about how the data moves across from one system to another system in that really helps to showcase what we can do as a GIS team. Because a lot of times you get to the one point and you're stuck and you got to wait for IT to help you to connect something to another thing, and sometimes that doesn't work out well. So it's nice to have that ecosystem already kind of set up that it can go across systems, and that just enables even more. That's the wall of awesomeness. I think that the guys were talking about is everything's all connected together. We just have to figure out what we want it to do. So that's
all right,
that.
So here's my idea, Tenzin. This is what we need to do. This is our opportunity. We've got to create at the next Esri user conference, perhaps the Petroleum GIS conference next year in Houston. We're gonna have T-shirts made, Wall of Awesomeness, and we're gonna have a little booth where you can sign that. We're doing that. That's the plan.
All right, sounds good.
Well, we've got a couple more questions just directed towards some folks individually, and then I'd like, as we kind of wind down in the next 9 minutes here, I do have an open question for all of you to kind of cap us back. But before we get to that, Carlos, this was one that was directed for you that is in our queue here. They asked, Carlos, how much ground truthing was done on the auto geofences, and what was the process for determined accuracy level?
So after we ran the side-back process, I think roughly we got about 80% of the way there, and then we got the remote operations center operators. They were matching the outlines with satellite imagery, basically. So that's the level of accuracy. I mean, and of course, this is an ongoing process, right? Because we're still finding some tweaks here and there. I mean, every week there's some process of readjusting a little bit, because as some of the operators, some of the pumpers, sometimes they will say, well, I didn't get credit for that visit. Well, then we go back and check. Oh, okay, so you didn't need credit because the shape of the geofence is not quite right. So we have to, modify it a little bit. So it's basically an ongoing process.
Fantastic. Scott, we have any more questions before we kind of do our sign-off question here in a little bit and give everyone a chance to speak?
Yeah, Ryan, we just had one more for you pop up. So you showed obviously a lot of processing being done in FME. Could you speak to maybe some of that, or what parts of that could maybe be done inside of SQL, within the database, or does it require something like a specialized tool like FME?
There is a mixture going on within the FME workspace itself. So, our production history is pretty extensive, goes back many years, but what we're showing is just a year. So it starts off with an SQL executor that queries the past 365 days worth of production to sort of limit that data set. So it's all done within the FME workspace.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, I've got a sign-off question. So we've got a few minutes left, and I'll give each of you an opportunity to share your thoughts on this. But what was really apparent to me as we interviewed and visited with you over the past few weeks preparing for this live event, one of the things that was apparent to me was the common thread that weaved through every one of your presentations. So not only did you have very creative, great ways of applying the technology to solve a problem, but in every one of your stories, and I meant it, I said this whenever I was kind of doing my guided talk into your presentations, there was a theme of understanding. So you had to have understood the problems that you were trying to solve. And then there was very good collaboration and communication. And to me, it seems like, you always hear the saying that the biggest problems to solve are always people problems, right? Technology is the easy part. I don't know if you all find that true, but I'm wondering if maybe we can go around the Brady Bunch window here, maybe Ryan, starting with you, and tell us a little bit about your thoughts. Like, how did communication, collaboration, how did that all come to work for you, and what was that like?
Taking the example that I gave, it started off as a pet project that, it reached a certain point and I put it aside. But it was like a year later, having discussions with my coworkers about it, sort of brought this back, into my mind. And, we were all talking about the best way or a better way to see the production over time. And that kind of spurred on, the further development of that process.
Thanks, Ryan. Carlos, well, Scott, do you have anything to continue there? I don't know. I don't know what I put you on the spot, Scott, as the Esri guy.
Yeah, no, I think what was evident in all of these presentations was, again, that location is a critical component, whether you're looking at production values or you're looking at real-time, readings coming off the wellhead. And there's a bunch of different out-of-the-box tools, right, that you can leverage to create visualizations or share data with people in the field. So, although there's a lot of really cool custom things that you can do, there's also a lot of great things out of the box that you can kind of tackle as low-hanging fruit right off the bat.
Carlos, any thoughts?
Yes, I think going to your comment on collaboration, I think that was probably the most difficult part for this project for me personally, because when just in the middle of the project, there was a massive IT reorganization, so the whole GIS team got disbanded and ended up in different application teams and infrastructure teams and all that. So it was challenging to coordinate all those teams together, right? Because I have to talk to my new infrastructure team, right, to ask for resources. Hey, I need more servers. I need configuration of all the NetScaler and all that. And then I have to talk to application team, kind of borrow some of the analysts from the infrastructure team to support the desktop and so forth, right? So it was challenging, but I think it really turns out great. Everybody was key in the success of this, and especially working with Casey, it was really good. As you know, Casey. So we've been working together for years. So it was, all in all, I think collaboration was the key for this project, at least from my point of view.
Casey, he's saying good things about you. What would you add?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Carlos. No, so building on what he was saying, I mean, yeah, communication is key, right? So especially when you're dealing with operations in general, as you know, in our industry, we have all this technology being thrown at us. We have all these great things we can do now, right, inside our IT and GIS departments, and we want to get it to our frontline fields. But if we don't communicate what we're doing, you know, and how we're doing it, and get their feedback, that closed loop feedback is just key to making any of these projects work, right? We're putting these tools in the hands of people, engineers, frontline operators, supervisors, things like that. These guys, they need to be a part of this team. We need to make sure that we get their feedback. We build our tools based off their needs, right? What problem are we trying to solve? Like you just said, that's always, I think that goes for every company. I think everybody has this same thing, right? What problem are we trying to solve? So make sure that, at least from our standpoint, we made sure that we was addressing all of our field needs. Those guys was at the table constantly, either as me being a liaison between operations to IT, or bringing guys directly into the table in some of our technical meetings and having them state their user story or their persona, what they had going on in the field, and then taking that and crafting this tool to match their operations. But there was so much communication between all teams, between the operations side with the IT side. That's what made this project successful. And I think that's what makes any project successful.
Thank you. Well, Morgan and Tencent, I'll lump you guys together because we're like in a minute before we're over. Any final thoughts or comments from the two of you?
Yeah, I'll just quickly say that, yeah, in terms of collaboration, once you have your end product, it's super important to kind of see who else is out there that could use that that output that you spent so much time creating, like in our instance, using the IOC real-time data for the emergency response planning, or our pipeline, geometrically connected pipeline network. So yeah, just you've done all the hard work, and then yeah, it's good to collaborate and see who else could use your output.
And I just add, Adam, I think you talked about it earlier about, you know, me walking around the hallways. I'm not aimlessly walking around the hallway. I go to people, I deliver my maps or my solutions to them. But I then, you know, I was actually talking to the construction foreman at the time, and I just provided some hard copy maps for him. And, you know, I said, hey, you know, like I got this new tool, kind of shows you where you are on the map and you can pull up some stuff. And he's like, well, you know, I don't really need that for myself, but there's a guy over there that may be interested in it. You should go talk to him. And, you know, I'm like, okay. And I just walked over there. I didn't know the guy. I just knocked on his door. I'm like, hey, Roger, can I come in and show you something? And sometimes, you know, people like I've mentioned this before. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you just and you know, for good or for bad, sometimes you only scratch the surface of something. But even just scratching the surface of something is something rather than nothing for that person. So I showed that user workforce, and my phone turned on, showing my location on that map, and then I put a couple of assets on that map. And I just showed that to them, and there was nothing else fancy about it. It was just, hey, look, I can track myself on this thing, and the business client was just amazed by that. It's like, wow, I didn't know we even had that capability. So sometimes it's good to just even scratch the surface and just show them what you can do, and that'll evolve that conversation even further.
It's great inspiration and vision and comments. Thank you all for that. And we're a little bit over, but I couldn't thank all of you enough for the fantastic stories and your organizations for allowing you to share those stories with the global community that's watching us live right now. So thank you all from the bottom of my heart and everybody at Esri. We greatly appreciate your time and your effort in joining us today live, and we couldn't thank you enough. So Mike and everybody on the back end, I think we're wrapping it up here. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining the operations session today. Everybody have a wonderful day.